Mais bienvenue au Centre national de presse pour la conférence de presse avec le chef de l'opposition, l'honorable Stéphane Dion. Mr. Dion has about 25 minutes for this news conference. We'll do one question, one supplemental after his prepared statement. And Mr. Dion, take it away.
Merci, Chris. Laissez-moi d'abord réitérer mes plus sincères condoléances aux familles éprouvées par la tragédie d'hier, à leurs amis, à leurs camarades, et souhaiter prompt rétablissement aux 2 personnes blessées pour ce qui s'est passé hier en Afghanistan. Le sujet de cette conférence de presse est une lettre publique que je viens d'adresser au Premier ministre du Canada sur un enjeu grave, c'est celui des changements climatiques. Avant-hier, le Premier ministre, le gouvernement conservateur a rendu public sa réponse à la loi de mise en œuvre du protocole de Kyoto. Il n'y a rien de nouveau. Ils réitèrent le soi-disant plan qu'ils ont mis en place au fil des mois, qui était critiqué de toutes parts, sinon qu'ils reconnaissent dans une annexe que les émissions de gaz à effet de serre vont continuer à augmenter jusqu'en 2012. Dans cette lettre publique, je prie instamment le Premier ministre du Canada d'adopter, de joindre le consensus des partis d'opposition et d'adopter le projet de loi C-30, c'est-à-dire la loi sur la qualité de l'air et les changements climatiques. Je fais valoir que son plan est très faible, mais que cette loi donne un cadre qui, lui, serait très solide et servirait bien notre pays. J'ai toujours considéré la question des changements climatiques comme essentielle. C'est la pire menace écologique à laquelle fait face l'humanité. C'est pourquoi, quand j'étais ministre de l'Environnement, j'ai fait 3 choses avec l'appui du Premier ministre Martin. Premièrement, bâtissant sur les plans d'action antérieurs, j'ai lancé Projet Vert en avril 2005. Un projet pour honorer nos engagements en vertu du protocole de Kyoto. Et je suis convaincu que si ce plan avait été mis en œuvre, et avec l'amélioration annuelle que le plan prévoyait année après année, nous aurions atteint nos objectifs de Kyoto pour la première phase de 2012. Ce plan, Projet Vert, a été considéré par le Pembina Institute comme étant, l'Institut Pembina, comme étant de 6 à 7 fois supérieur au plan que M. Baird nous propose maintenant. Deuxième chose que j'ai fait comme ministre de l'Environnement, j'ai renforcé le consensus mondial autour du protocole de Kyoto en présidant la conférence de Montréal sur les changements climatiques sous les auspices de l'ONU en décembre 2005 et lancé le plan d'action de Montréal sur cette base. Troisièmement, nous avons placé les gaz à effet de serre dans la liste des projets à être réglementés, des produits, excusez-moi, à être réglementés par la loi canadienne de protection de l'environnement. Since then, Mr. Harper took the power, became the Prime Minister, and the first year of his mandate, he dismantled billions of dollars of climate change and environment programs. This sad story is well documented in the yearly report of the Sierra Club that has been published at the beginning of this year. Also, what he did, he sent Madame Ambrose, his Minister of the Environment, to try to undermine the Kyoto Protocol and to kill completely the Montreal Action Plan that Canada was promoting some months before. Why? Because the Prime Minister at that time did not believe in climate change, was speaking about the so-called greenhouse gas emissions, as he did large part of his adult life. And then he saw polls, he saw the new Minister of the Environment, and he came with a shuffle this year, and what he thought to be a strong communicator, Minister Baird. And then they came with, in recreating some of the programs they cut, but with less money, less details, new names. And as we have seen this summer, they are so poorly designed that it's very difficult to implement them. Whatever it is, the fee-based rebate for cars, whatever it is, the retrofit new program for homes. And they came with a plan, a so-called plan, that has been criticized by every side and considered by a very credible institute as very weak. The CDAO, the Deutsche Bank, the Pembina, the Tidal Institute conclude that with Mr. Baird's so-called plan, in fact, emissions will go up in Canada emissions of greenhouse gas, not only until 2012, not only until 2020, but maybe until 2050 and beyond. It's a wrong plan, and in the letter I explained that to the Prime Minister. I gave the example of the oil sands. The requirement to the oil sands in Mr. Baird's plan are so weak that in fact they will make money with this plan because what the plan is asking them to do is less than what they are planning to do anyway. Now, there is a solution, and it is Bill C-30, the Clean Air and Climate Change Act, supported by all the three parties of the opposition. It's quite exceptional that you see that, because these three parties have strongly different views on many issues, but they agreed after hard work. And at the core of this act, you have the Liberal plan to regulate the large funnel emitters, balancing our carbon budget, un budget carbone équilibré. What this regulation would do, it would ask to the large emitters in Canada, the companies that are sending greenhouse gas into the atmosphere, to pay for each ton of carbon they send in the atmosphere in excess of their Kyoto target. They would have to pay $20 beginning, $30 after some years, and they would have their money back, though, if they decrease their emissions through sound projects of reductions. And the Green Investment Bank would monitor all the process. You would have a price on the carbon, something that all the economists knowledgeable of the file are asking us to do, and we would be in a strong situation to honor our international commitments. The Prime Minister, and it's why I'm sending this letter now, in addition of the fact that we have his answer about the Kyoto bill 2 days ago. The Prime Minister is going the 24th of September to the United Nations meeting on climate change, and it's important for him to come with a lot of credibility. In December 2005, I had credibility because I had a plan, a credible plan. Now we have an even better plan, improved since then. It is the one you have in the Clean Air and Climate Change Act. At least it's part of what we need to do. And if he comes with that, he will have a lot of credibility to help the world to figure out what to do beyond the first phase of Kyoto, that is, beyond 2012. It's very important to know. Il faut bien comprendre, Kyoto ne se termine pas en 2012. C'est seulement la première phase, la première phase qui se termine. Le Canada doit subir les conséquences du fait qu'on risque de manquer cette première étape et de ne pas atteindre notre objectif. Et le Canada doit se préparer à négocier avec les autres pays ce qui se passera par après. Il faut donc que nous soyons très forts. Voilà pourquoi je demande au Premier ministre de se rallier au consensus pour la loi sur l'air pur et les changements climatiques. The Prime Minister wants, it seems, to prorogate. I'm not sure it's what he wants to do, but there are some rumors about that. We are against the prorogation. We think that the government should be accountable for what the government has done. We have collective work to do and to conclude, and this Act on Clean Air and Climate Change is a key piece of it. But if he decides to prorogate, we ask the government to include the Clean Air and Climate Change Act in the list of the bills that will carry it forward in the next Parliament. And we cannot imagine that they will not do that. It would be an act of civility when all the parties of the opposition, because I suppose that the Bloc and the NDP will ask for the same, are asking for that, and when it's clear that it's the preference of the Canadian people. So this is my request to the Prime Minister. Je lui demande de rallier au consensus sur la loi sur l'air pur et les changements climatiques. C'est un enjeu trop important pour notre pays. Merci beaucoup.
So we have 15 minutes left for questions. One question, one supplementary, please, starting with Julie Van Dusen, CBC Television.
Monsieur Dion, Monsieur Duceppe said earlier today that if the throne speech doesn't include the pullout in 2009 of Afghanistan, that he threatened to bring down the government. What's your view of that?
Not here to make threats. Why Mr. Duceppe wants to wait until October? We are requesting the Prime Minister to notify to NATO, the government of Afghanistan, that the combat mission in Kandahar will end in February 2009. We are asking that since last February, the speech I delivered at the Université de Montréal, my first major speech as the leader of the opposition and leader of the Liberal Party. We didn't change our view since then. We are asking that every week to the Prime Minister to do that. We had a motion last April that the Bloc, to their credit, supported, but not the NDP. It must be notified now, not to wait until October. And when the Prime Minister said we need first to have a debate in the House, the debate may happen at the end of the winter or next spring, it's far too late. Why to wait? We need to be good partners with our NATO allies and the government of Afghanistan. We need to give them the time for the replacement. It should be said now.
Français, M.
Oui, je m'étonne que M. Duceppe soit prêt à attendre jusqu'en octobre. En fait, nous demandons, depuis février dernier, que le gouvernement clarifie très clairement nos alliés et il leur indique que nous nous retirons en février 2009 de la mission de combat à Kandahar, afin de, un bon partenaire dans une alliance, afin de faciliter le remplacement. L'attente du Premier ministre est tout à fait déplorable et irresponsable. Il devrait le faire maintenant. Il sait qu'il n'a pas l'appui de la Chambre. Inutile d'attendre. Il a dit au président Bush, si c'était que de moi, on resterait sans date butoir, donc une guerre ouverte. On le sait, on en conclura ce qu'il faut en conclure du point de vue du choix des Canadiens au prochain vote, mais on fait partie d'une alliance, cessons la confusion et disons très clairement qu'il faut un remplacement pour février 2009.
Julie's follow-up.
If I could just ask a follow-up, you've been saying basically the same thing for 18 months regarding the Conservative government on those two issues. You don't
18
like
months? Enfin, since February.
Right. No, but you've been talking about Afghanistan, the fact that they're not doing what you want them to do, notifying NATO and so on. You're talking about the environment. You talk about how there's consensus on C-30. The committee's all in favor of that approach. So instead of just saying over and over again they're not doing enough, like why don't you band together with the opposition parties and bring down the minority government?
I'm not here to make threats about that, but everybody knows that there is a possibility one day of a confidence motion or a confidence vote that the government may be defeated. But I'm not saying today that is what I want. I want to be sure that the Prime Minister understands the most important reasons why his plan is full of weaknesses about climate change, and what we are proposing would be very good for Canada, for our environment, our economy, and our role in the world. And we want him to agree with that and then to support the Clean Air and Climate Change Act. This is what we are asking. And there is a way to do it, is to be sure that he does not prorogate, and if he prorogates, that he includes C-30 among the bills that will survive to the change of Parliament.
Prochaine question avec Ray Fillion, TVA.
Je comprends que vous ne voulez pas attendre 2 mois pour que le gouvernement fédéral prenne une décision dans le dossier de l'Afghanistan, prévienne l'OTAN, mais pourquoi ne pas appuyer la démarche du Bloc québécois? Ça va dans le même sens.
Ben moi, je vais plus loin. Je veux qu'il le fasse maintenant. Il aurait dû le faire hier, M. Harper. Il n'y a pas besoin d'attendre jusqu'en octobre. Je ne lui donne pas ce délai. Je veux qu'il le fasse maintenant parce qu'il faut être responsable par rapport à nos alliés, par rapport au gouvernement afghan, au peuple afghan, et c'est irresponsable la façon dont il se comporte en ce moment.
Qu'est-ce que vous pensez que ça aura comme conséquence sur l'opinion publique? Et vous pouvez nous parler des conséquences politiques que vous entrevoyez avec 3 décès chez les soldats de la base de Valcartier en l'espace de 4 jours. Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Non, la prémisse de la question, je ne la suis pas. Je ne fais pas de la politique en fonction sur le dos des drames et des victimes qui s'accumulent. C'est pas ça le point. Le point fondamental, c'est que le Canada doit être clair par rapport à nos engagements et qu'après 3 ans de mission de combat difficiles et dangereuses, le Canada aura fait sa part. Et c'est le point de vue de mon parti. Et nous souhaitons que le Premier ministre clarifie cela auprès de nos alliés, plutôt que d'entretenir une ambiguïté malsaine pour tout le monde.
Randall Palmer, Reuters.
Mr. Dion, you spoke about the possibility of a confidence motion. What might you include in a confidence motion, and when might you move one? Are you ruling one out for this?
We will never go there if the Prime Minister accepts the view that this plan is full of weaknesses, criticized by the research institutes that look at it, will not allow Canada to honor its international commitments, will not allow our economy to make the shift toward the sustainable economy that we need to do. And to the contrary, what the parties of the opposition are suggesting, the climate change plan that we have now, will put Canada in the good direction in order to be a good partner within the Kyoto Protocol and beyond.
You say you won't go there, you won't have a confidence motion if the Prime Minister recognizes that his legislation is completely flawed. But if the Prime Minister doesn't recognize that it's completely flawed, then does that mean that you will...
the next step, though...
If I could just finish, either do a non-confidence motion or perhaps amend the speech from the throne, as Mr. Layton was suggesting, to insist on either something on Afghanistan or on environment.
Before to discuss the content of the speech of the throne, we'll look at it when we'll see it. But there is a step before, and the step is which bill will survive if they prorogate. If they don't, we're okay. If they do, we are asking through this letter to the Prime Minister to include C30 among the bills that will be put forward for the next Parliament.
Martin Stringer, CPAC.
You've asked a lot of hypothetical situations. Your wish is that they do not prorogue. That will probably not come true. Your wish is that they bring back C30, the Clean Air and Climate Change Bill. That will probably not come true. What will be on the books is C288, the bill to ask the government to live up to its Kyoto responsibilities. 2 days ago, we saw their response to it, and that was largely expected, and that is that they have retabled or reiterated what they have brought in. Back to the question of what do you do when the only law on the land is C288, calling for the respect of the Kyoto responsibilities. Environmental groups, including the Friends of the Earth, are waiting for you. They have a legal action to try and call the government to act on Kyoto responsibilities under CEPA. It's the law of the land, and you have impending international lawsuits against the government. You're saying you wouldn't even do as much as the environmental groups, or even do as much as you said in the spring about taking this government to task over not living up.
I'm not following you at all. It's a long question. And
Martin, we're running out of time.
The only thing I will say, and thank you to correct my pronunciation, is to prorogue, not to prorogate. If they prorogue and they go toward a throne speech, everybody knows, that the risk of an election is going up. Because who will support this throne speech is unknown, and I cannot answer to this question today because I didn't see the throne speech.
What makes you expect that they will do anything different than they did 2 days ago, and that is to just simply
It's my role as leader of the opposition to suggest to the government what I think is the good direction. If the government wants to ignore what I'm suggesting, then I need to discuss with my caucus what will be the next step. But today, what we are offering to the government is to join the consensus, the right thing to do, to come with a strong bill that must become the law of the land, the law on climate change and the Clean Air Act.
Daniel LeBlanc, Globe Mail.
Oui. Monsieur Dion, est-ce que selon vous, le discours du trône est un vote de confiance?
Le discours du trône est par définition un vote de confiance, certainement. Si aucun parti d'opposition ne l'appuie, vous savez quelle est la conséquence. Mais pour le moment, je ne peux pas tellement spéculer sur le contenu d'un discours du trône. C'est certain que nous voulons la loi sur l'air pur. Elle est très importante pour le Canada.
Est-ce que vous approchez le discours du trône un peu comme le budget? Vous disiez qu'en tant qu'opposition officielle, la barre est plus haute pour vous pour appuyer un discours du trône que peut-être les autres partis d'opposition, que pragmatiquement, vous allez vous y opposer à moins qu'il y ait quelque chose là-dedans de très alléchant.
Je ne peux pas parler pour les autres partis, mais il n'y a aucune chance, aucun risque, je dirais, que les députés libéraux se lèvent pour appuyer un discours du trône que nous jugerions contraire à l'intérêt des Canadiens et à l'honneur de notre pays.
John Robson, Ottawa Citizen.
Yes. If the government does accept what you're suggesting, that they then allow the opposition parties to set policy on crucial issues where they don't agree, in what sense constitutionally would the Conservatives really remain the government?
But they need to work with the Parliament, yes, especially for legislative issues. And I think it's common practice that when there is a request for the opposition to keep alive a bill when you prorogue, the government must accept our request. I cannot imagine that Mr. Harper will say, I will not include this bill in the bill that will be put forward despite the fact that the leader of the opposition is asking me to do so. So I expect that he will say yes to my request, and that the Clean Air and Climate Change Act will stay alive after prorogation.
But it goes a bit beyond procedure, because you're talking about climate change, whose importance you've stressed, and national defense also. Is it not necessary, if you want to set policy on individual matters of key importance, that you go to the Governor General and say, we will take responsibility for the overall coherence of governing, dismiss the Prime Minister, and let us form a ministry? It's not right to have the fun of making policy without the duty of having it all fit together.
The government pretends that their so-called plan is a good plan. I give all the facts, all the reasons why it is not, and I'm not alone. All the environmental groups, a lot of institutes, many economists, many CEOs are saying the same. And I'm putting that on paper with numbers. And I say to the government, although your plan is very weak, what the parties of the oppositions agreed on is very strong. So join the consensus. I'm sure it's not constitutional practice what I'm doing.
Donna McCharles, the Toronto Star.
Sir, could you just go back and clarify your thinking on the throne speech and whether it is or isn't a vote of confidence? We've seen in the past opposition parties amend a throne speech, Mr. Martin's, for example, and it wasn't deemed a confidence measure at that time. The government agreed. Can you just? I thought you were just saying that the throne speech is a matter of confidence in your view.
It is. It is, but it's because at that time, the Prime Minister accepted to amend the throne speech to have the support of the House. A government that has no support for his throne, its throne speech, has lose the confidence of the House. If the Prime Minister is ready to make amendments, then we'll talk, certainly.
But so you're saying...
But I cannot say if we will need amendments before I have seen the throne speech.
But, well, sure, that's a detail in your view. Isn't that what you're saying? You're saying if it isn't this plan, and if it isn't pull out of Afghanistan by 2009, then you're not in.
If C30, that means the Clean Air and Climate Change Act, go forward, nothing will stop the government to suggest amendments to this bill. And the parties of the opposition, the official opposition, will look at the amendments the government is proposing. If they kill the bill, then we have a problem.
Keith? Keith Boak, CBC TV.
Afghanistan. Without going back to the point of the government notifying NATO, which you've made repeatedly, what else has to happen? Mr. Harper said he wants a consensus from Parliament if the mission's going to continue in any other way. Do you know whether you'll be bringing forward a proposal to him for the kind of mission?
We know for sure that we don't want any more combat mission. That means when you proactively search the engagement with the enemy. But training, development, humanitarian initiatives, yes, certainly we are willing to look at what the government has in mind and to see if we may build a consensus on that. But no combat mission anymore.
In terms of a process, though, do you expect to meet with Mr. Harper? Have you had any contact from his office about how to move forward in the fall?
No, not yet.
Will you make a proposal?
Not yet. I guess that the House leaders will have to work on that, and I'm always available for the Prime Minister.
Prochaine question, Hélène Bezzetti, Le Devoir.
Oui, Monsieur Dion. Plutôt que de poser toujours la question sous forme hypothétique, posons-la plutôt de façon proactive. Quels sont les éléments minimaux que vous voulez absolument voir dans un discours du trône pour que vous puissiez y donner son appui? Vous avez parlé de maintenir en vie C30, mais y a-t-il autre chose que vous voulez absolument voir dans le discours, à défaut de quoi vous
Non, le but de cette conférence de presse n'est pas de vous indiquer le discours du trône que nous voulons. Il est de...
Monsieur Duceppe, par contre, a remonté les enchères aujourd'hui, donc on veut vous en parler.
C'est certain que si le gouvernement arrive avec un discours du trône qui nous apparaît au détriment du peuple canadien, que ce soit du point de vue de nos engagements militaires, que ce soit de la lutte, du point de vue de la lutte contre les changements climatiques ou d'autres enjeux cruciaux, ce serait très difficile pour nous de nous lever en chambre et d'appuyer une telle chose. C'est pas le but de cette conférence de presse que de vous dire cette évidence. Le but de cette conférence de presse, c'est de réitérer les raisons fondamentales pourquoi nous pensons que les initiatives de M. Baird sont nocives pour le Canada et ne nous permettent pas de faire face à ce terrible danger que représentent les changements climatiques, mais que par contre, ce que les partis d'opposition ont pu bâtir ensemble, avec notamment le budget carbone proposé par le Parti libéral, au contraire, nous mettrait dans une situation très forte. Et on voudrait que le Premier ministre se rende à l'évidence et nous appuie en ce sens.
Mais la seule
Glenn,
promesse...
I think you've had two. We're running out of time, and I just want to get the two other guys in. Al Finley and then Theo, if you could share one-on-one.
Sure. I just wanted to clarify, C30 is not in the throne speech or address before then. You can't support the throne speech.
We'll need to see the throne speech and what you have to say about climate change, but I cannot imagine that the Prime Minister would not respect a tradition, that is to put forward a bill when it is requested by the opposition.
Theo, final question? Sorry.
Mr. Dion, you said you're not here to make threats, but you also said the probability of an election increases if there's a throne speech. So will you be ready, and will your party be ready in October for an election?
It's my duty to be sure that my party is ready, whatever at any time an election may come. And if it's happening, we'll be ready. What I'm saying is that each time you have a possibility of a vote of confidence, you increase the possibility that no parties of the opposition are able to support the government at this stage. And a throne speech will add to this possibility, as a budget speech is doing. But I'm not here to come with this kind of threats, as you have said in your question. I'm here to ask the Prime Minister to do the right thing, to respect the tradition, and to keep C30 alive. If he decides to prorogue, I hope he will not prorogue. It will be easier if he does not. If he does, there is a mechanism that may keep C30 alive, and I ask him to admit that it's what he will do.
Thank you, Mr. Dion. This concludes the press conference for the National Press Theatre.
Thank you very much. Merci.